Live in Manchester, New Hampshire. And I think you can see what is behind me. A baseball field. A baseball field of the Manchester Fisher Cats, who are a AA affiliate of the Toronto Blue Jays. I know you expected a Yankee affiliate there, and of course, the Red Sox. I think with me they would have expected a Yankee affiliate. You might have expected the Red Sox because it's in Manchester, New Hampshire, 1 hour drive from Fenway Park. But nope, both are disappointed. It's the Toronto Blue Jays. In any event, it's still great fun to watch minor league baseball. And I became a great fan of this hotel and restaurant. The first time I stayed here in 2007 when I was running in the New Hampshire primary, and it was the wintertime, and I opened my blinds and my curtains on a cold winter's day, and what did I see but a baseball field filled with snow? Oh! And every time I can, when I come to Manchester, for whatever reason, politics, business, fun, pleasure, just stopping for the night on the way to somewhere else, I try to stay here and I try to get a room because one half of the hotel faces the entrance and the other half of the hotel faces the ball field. Tonight, the Fisher Cats are playing. They're playing Reading Phillies. So they're playing the AA affiliate of the Philadelphia Phillies. So, we'll see if we can check in on what's going on in the game. We're here, of course, mainly because of the primary, and we hope to have a candidate here with us later. We spent last night debriefing one of the campaigns and gathering information on several others today. So let me begin with a few comments on the debt, because our guest should be here in about half hour, I'd say, or less. I do not agree with some conservatives who believe that this was a terrible, terrible deal, and that Speaker McCarthy should either be blamed for it or fired, I guess, for it, or maybe they want him tortured or something. This is politics. This is not war to the death. It's politics. It's politics in a democracy. Just because they act, meaning the Democrats, and not all Democrats, but the highest level, like fascists, who have no understanding of the word democracy and have lost it completely. And I agree with that. Probably I agree with it and know it better than most of you. They are a disgrace. They have destroyed any semblance of an American democracy with their ruling by dictate, like Biden signing all those memorandums of understanding and other things, which are dictates. Some of whom have been now reversed, thank God, by the Supreme Court, all of whom should be reversed by the Supreme Court. In an earlier era, he might have been impeached for that because it's a usurpation of power that he doesn't have under the Constitution. That's gone a long way to destroy our American democracy. His Democrat governors showed him the way with their fascist activities during the pandemic, decreeing that you couldn't go out, decreeing that you had to wear a mask, decreeing that you had to be vaccinated with a vaccine that hadn't even been tested, decreeing that you couldn't go to church on Easter Sunday, or you couldn't go to church during the high holy days if you were Jewish, but you could go to the liquor store and the strip parlor. They sure made clear their what would be considered communist alignment of morals, because Karl Marx yearned for the day that morality was removed in those bourgeois Western civilizations, meaning civilizations that traced a great deal of their morality to Jesus Christ or to Moses or to both. But right now, we're not going to win by becoming them. I know there's a tendency, and I have a lot of friends who have it, and there's a masculine quality to this. If they did it to us, we're going to do it to them. No, we're not. No, we're not. Because we are Americans. And we are good people. We're not Joe Biden. Are you Joe Biden? Would you take a bribe? Huh? How about, would you take hundreds of bribes? Huh? Would you take your son as a teenager who had an addictive personality and have him collect bribes from you and have him work for some of the worst criminals in the world? No, you wouldn't, would you? Because you're a good person, right? Would you do that? You wouldn't do that, right? Would you take $31 million from the Chinese communists? Would you give up an airbase 400 miles from China when you know that China wants to destroy us? Of course you wouldn't do that because you're a good person. Would you cover up a critical piece of information so you could fix an election? No, because you're a good person. I can go on, right? So, yes, we want to defeat them. But we don't want to become them. God forbid. We don't want them to develop in us the desire to become them. We want to be able to maintain in this cauldron of unethical behavior and immorality and greed and double crossing and disloyalty. We want to maintain our principles. And don't let anyone tell you you can't do that and win, because when that's the case, we've become a fascist country. We can win. We just got to work hard. And we have to be loyal. And we have to be able to pick our battles. We don't have the luxury to fight with each other over everything. Maybe when we're in charge, we can have more sophisticated debates about should we reduce 20% or 10% or 5%. Let's start with reducing. So I'll tell you a story. I mean, I was the mayor for a short while, maybe 3-4 months, and I had put out my first budget, and man, I was getting demonstrations every day. There's somebody out there. And I just became mayor. I was used to this. U.S. attorney, I'd get a few demonstrations, but a lot of them were in my favor, getting rid of the mafia, getting rid of the drug dealers. People like that. Well, some people do. And all of a sudden, there's a demonstration outside. And my deputy mayor and best friend, Peter Power, comes in and said, "You want to look out the window, Mayor? You see the demonstration?" I said, Peter, I don't like to look at them. What's the good? I know what they're saying. I'm a creep. I'm a bum. I'm Hitler. I'm whatever I am. He said, no, these people are in favor of you. I said, why are they in favor of me? Because you set a record. I said, I did. I've only been in office 3 months. How could I set a record? You cut taxes more than any mayor in the history of New York City. I said, Peter, we just got into office. We won by 2%. We have a city council that's 45 Democrats and 6 Republicans. Yeah, I got a little, I cut the hotel occupancy tax, and I cut a little bit on property taxes. But that really wasn't much of a cut. He said, well, you set the record. I said, I did? Yeah, because nobody else in the history of New York City has ever cut taxes. And I thought about it. I mean, we virtually had no Republican mayors in 250 years. I was the 3rd Republican mayor in the city, and only one of 2 to remain a Republican. And I always tell people that Abraham Lincoln lost New York City twice. So, but the part of the story is I eventually cut taxes by just about more than any jurisdiction in the country. Even solid conservative Republic cut them about 25%. Cut them to such an extent our economy was booming, and I produced a surplus and a rainy day fund because we took the first tax and we showed them how we made money with it. And then we started educating, and we got them into wanting to cut taxes with us. So, the old Chinese saying, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step, is true when you have this kind of entrenched behavior. So you cannot expect that McCarthy is going to have a revolution when we don't control the presidency, we don't control the Senate, and we got, a 4-vote margin in the House. I look at it the other way. It's remarkable he got what he got. Nobody thought he could get it. Now that he's gotten it, it's not enough. Come on. This is not Paul Ryan, and don't start the Paul Ryan garbage on him, okay? When the guy fails, I'll tell you. But here's what he got for you. I mean, he got a reduction in spending, $56 billion in the first year, $88 billion in the second year, if I recall correctly. Could be a little off, but about that. Is that a lot? No. Is it more than we would have gotten had we not elect Republicans? Yes. Is it a start? Yes. Does it set a nice challenge to the next president? Certainly, if a Republican, that he's got to do a lot better than that. Come on, let's get realistic. We have the whiteboard here, Ted. Maybe somebody can get it for me. I'll just show you. We can run it through very quickly because I want to show you this. Excuse the writing, it's mine, not Dr. Maria or Ted. They're much better writers than I am.
You got good handwriting.
Ted, can they see this?
They can. Yeah. Once, let me. Yeah.
So here's what we got. So don't tell me we didn't get anything. If you want to tell me it wasn't speaking of the field here, it wasn't a home run. It wasn't a home run. Look at second base. We got the second base. You can't get home unless you touch second base. Or let's even say we got the first base. Can't get home unless you touch first base. If you don't touch first base, it's not a home run. Did you know that? So, number one, we had debt limit legislation. They want to change the debt limit. They got to get a law passed. So it's solidified. We got not far off, $55 billion in cuts right now, $81 billion next year. Okay. We have simplified the oil and gas permitting. We got this really in part to vindicate Manchin, who was double-crossed by Schumer. This is what Manchin was promised to sell us out with that inflation bill, anti-inflation bill that sent inflation through the roof because it was supposed to be for infrastructure and it was for human infrastructure. It was for welfare. It was for don't work. It was don't work money. But now we have across the board simplification of oil and gas permitting, which is a practical matter, means before Trump takes over, we can start the process of getting back to being energy independent. We won't get there with this, but we'll get there faster as soon as we have Trump or a like-minded president. This is very important, by the way. I saw this in the bill, and I didn't know why they didn't make more of this. These are things that I use very effectively as mayor, and these are things that Congress generally doesn't do. A government administrative office monitor for all regulations. So what they do is they report on whether these regulations are working. You know how often they report they don't? About 8 out of 10 times. It lays a basis for getting rid of the regulation. Trump went crazy getting rid of regulations. He got rid of so many. I mean, he actually physically affected the size of the book. This began our economic revival in 2017, just getting rid of regulations. This, I know it's hard because it's not sexy. This could be more important than reducing taxes in terms of stimulating business activity, because regulations can have more of an inhibitory effect on business sometimes than taxes. Very often they do. Workfare for SNAP. That's the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. You're going to have to work up to the age of 55 if you're getting government handouts except for Medicaid. Now, Republicans wanted Medicaid. It was a compromise. Okay, he got half of what he wanted. But before McCarthy and the Republicans were elected, there was no workfare. It had been done away with. I started it with Governor Thompson. Clinton and Newt Gingrich made it national. And the Democrats did away with it, starting with Obama and completely with Biden. This is part of one of our very big problems. You make more money not working than working, which means we don't have a workforce. This is very important. And it covers a big portion of the electorate, of the population. Not the entire, but this is what happens in a divided government. You get a compromise. But this is a good one. Democrats don't want this. Only way they got the debt ceiling lifted to pay the bills we have right now is by agreeing to this. A clawback of 1.6 billion IRS. This is disappointing. I would give this a failing grade. We should have gotten more back from the IRS. Some people think it was 24 billion and write it down some place. Oh, I may be wrong about this. I hope I am, but I'm putting it at 1.4 billion because that's all I've seen. I've been told it was 24 billion. If it is 24 billion, I take it from a failing grade to a B. We clawed back the COVID money. I can't tell how effective that was. It was about 26 billion. But I don't know how much is left. And I can't tell you if we clawed it all back. That would tell you how effective it was. And we ended Biden's student debt limit so that they're going to have to pay their debts. Now, that's a pretty good set of achievements for a government, remember, where the opposing, certainly we'd agree socialist government, I'd say communist, but let's say socialist, where the socialist government opposes all of this, every single bit of it, wouldn't do any of it. They had to swallow hard to agree to this. So let's say to McCarthy, in the realistic world we live in, Speaker McCarthy, this is a really good job. And this is the first positive thing on a Republican agenda since Trump left office. So take a sip of water. Okay. This way you'll hear me better. But I really do think we should calm down the rhetoric here. I'm not trying to be insulting. I'm just trying to be realistic and stop being babies, you know? Come on. We're in a sandbox. We can't have all the toys because we don't have enough people. They have more people in the sandbox than we do. When we got more people in the sandbox, we can have more of the toys, okay? You got to vote for us. You vote for us, we can straighten the whole damn thing out. But you don't vote for us, you do what you do to us in Chicago and New York, we can't help you save lives when you keep voting Democrat. I don't know what's wrong with you. I know what's wrong with people in my state, voting for Hochul, voting for Adams. And look what you got. I don't know. I really don't know what's wrong with you in Chicago. The numbers over the Memorial Day weekend. But the problem with it is I could have predicted it. I knew it was going to happen. You know it's going to happen. And then you just vote for it. You voted the most wacky candidate for mayor. You picked the guy that likes the criminals the most and has the least regard for honest people. Tell me why. Hard to understand. Well, the professor the student at CUNY, was it Fatima Mohammed? I think that's her name, who gave a speech 2 weeks ago saying, and I played some of it last night. I can't play it again. I played it a bit on my radio show today and then just put it off. Basically said that the police department is fascist. The military is fascist. The police department basically likes to kill black people. We are a country of white supremacists. The law, and this is why they don't have to follow it, I guess, is a product of white supremacy. Israel should be not sanctioned or destroyed. Should be done away with, which is what the aim of the boycott is. It should no longer exist. It should be annihilated. You realize how extreme a position that is? The dean of the college and all of the happy, useless professors that produce every year one of the worst law schools in America, instead of hiding their head in shame at the results they get, like in the bottom quarter of law schools, instead of like going around saying, gee, we really should get a different faculty because we're such lousy teachers, because we do such a bad job. They were all applauding for this. So, applauding for this means not only are you a radical, not only do you hate America, not only do you not understand what's really going on, it also explains your terrible academic performance because you're stupid. You're stupid. You expect to improve and move people out of poverty and do away with the police? What will happen is you may not have any impoverished people after all because they'll be killed. But that's not the way to do it. We're a racist society. We're probably one of the least racist societies in this country. In fact, we were doing really well before Biden came along. And is he racist? Well, I'm not going to go through all the ways in which he's racist. I'm going to say that I was enormously impressed with the article today by Andy Stein and Professor Dershowitz, which asks for the city to defund the city law school. Why the city should pay for your law education is beyond me. But if it is paying for your law education, it's paying for a very, very deficient law degree. And I'm not talking now about their radical position. I'm talking about much more practically their standing as a law school, which is almost as bad as Biden's standing in his law school class. I mean, this is a law school where Biden might have been able to get through without cheating. But at his law school, he had to get through with massive cheating. Of course, it should be defunded. If they want to be a law school that hates America, that tells you that the law is a product of white supremacy, then somebody else should pay for it privately. Your tax dollars shouldn't pay for it any more than your tax dollars should have paid for desecrating the Blessed Mother, or help the Los Angeles Dodgers do anything because they conducted a pride night where they deliberately mocked the Catholic Church. And I don't consider myself an ideal Catholic like Biden does. But I'm very upset, very angry, and very insulted for my co-religionists who are a lot better than I am, and none of whom deserve it, not even me. Because I'm going to ask you a question that both Professor Dershowitz and Andy Stein put very eloquently in the article. Can you honestly say, even if you're a big libtard, can you honestly say, if a group of people showed up at the Pride Day dressed up as a transgender Mohammeds and transgender Arab women who are men in hijab, in variations of the hijab, but with these like ridiculous bras and stuff on to make fun of the Muslim religion, or the fact that the Muslim religion permits marriage with 3 women, or anything, or to do what was done in Chicago 20 years ago, play off the parts of the Quran where Muhammad kills large numbers of people. It would have been taken down immediately, right? the Dodgers would have had to apologize 45 times and at least fired a few people. But now, they just move on, and Catholics get another slap in the face. We should not allow this, because we shouldn't allow it not because of pride, but because of our showing our respect for our religion and demanding that people respect our religious beliefs. We respect theirs. I respect the religious beliefs of the legitimate churches, but I don't have to be Catholic. I expect the same respect for my religion, and I don't get it. And it's getting worse, and in some places, it's leading to violence. So I would say that the Dodgers did something really awful. I don't know if I were a Dodger fan, if I'd go to a Dodger game at least this year. And I'm not a Dodger fan, and I sure as heck wouldn't go to one of their games on the road. And I do go to games other than Yankee games. Like, if I weren't doing this, I'd be watching this game right here. But the Dodgers are a disgrace. Just like Target. Just like Budweiser. Just like Loulimon. What is a Loulimon, by the way? I still don't know. Is it like a French ice? Loulimon? Oh, Coles. Huh. Loulimon is the one that fired their people who reported the criminals. Well, they got to be really big-time whack jobs, right? You fire your employees who got stuck up or looted, and they called the police, and you fire them? You fire the people who steal things, not the people who report the people who are stealing. Only way we're going to change this is if we don't sit there like a bunch of baboons going, we don't want to make any trouble. We got to stand up for what we believe in. We don't have to, I told you, we don't have to become them. We don't have to break laws. We don't have to lie. We don't have to cheat. We don't have to take money from bad people. We can boycott. Still going, but Budweiser has moved now to about 18 billion for Budweiser. That's good. That's good. Excellent.
So we'll cut to a break, or want to do a quick commercial, and we'll bring on our guest.
I think we will do a quick commercial. We'll bring in Dr. Kirk, and he'll explain to people what they can do to help themselves. And I urge them to pay attention to Dr. Kirk, double PhD. Faith and family, freedom and finance are four things that we would do anything to protect. I trust the team at Kirk Elliott PhD Private Advisors with providing the advice and sound strategies to take advantage of the inflationary pressures, the high interest rates, and the international challenges we face today. The Kirk Elliott team, with over 29 years of experience, shares our values and believes in people over profit. They can help you protect your finances from the big government policies that are out of our control. So what's in our control? The decision to act or not to act is within our control. I encourage you to act. Call Kirk Elliott PhD Private Advisors today. Start working with a team that will help you protect your retirement assets with gold and silver while sharing your desire to protect your faith, family, and freedom. Call them today, 720-605-3900. That's 720-605-3900, and tell them Rudy sent you. Or simply fill out a request for a free consultation at kirkelliottphd.com/Rudy.
That's fine.
All right, and we're back on.
Are we on? Are we good?
We are good and on the air with Terry Johnson. All right, Mayor, we're on.
Well, isn't it exciting? We have right off the campaign trail. He looks like he didn't, and I know for sure because I spent a lot of time campaigning here, that he's been campaigning all day, haven't you?
I have.
Yeah, I know that. Here, it's amazing, isn't it?
It's the most amazing state on the planet.
Oh, you just won Maria's vote. So, Perry, tell us first of all, how did you decide to do this? I think everyone has now at least seen your commercials, which are fun. I mean, they're good, they're different, and they get your attention, which is the whole purpose of it. So, tell us how you decided to run. What were the factors? It's a hard thing to do. It's not easy, right?
Actually, I love this country. We have the greatest country on the planet. There is no better country. And when you are born in this country, you've already won the lottery.
God bless you. Yep.
Now, when I got to understand that I grew up in a small town, Dalton, Illinois, actually, and my dad was a pilot in World War II. My mom was a nurse in the Army Wax. And when they had me, they told me that the greatest gift you can be given is to have two loving parents and be born an American. And in America, you can do anything. It is up to you. And I believe that in my heart and soul. And when I saw what's happening to the country, frankly, I thought it's a sin. We are now at a point where we are literally $32 trillion in debt. And keep in mind that we were arguing about our indebtedness right around 2000. And in 2008, we said, okay, something has to stop. And we saw that we doubled our debt from 10 trillion to just around 20 trillion under Obama. But in the last 6 years, we have spent more money than in the history of any country in the world.
Oh, my goodness.
And we are now 12 trillion more in debt. And as a matter of fact, as a result of this, the interest alone was $610 per family. And only about 4 years ago, it was about half that. So the greatest strength of a country is the economy. It all starts with the economy. Think about this. We had Rome rule the world for 1,000 years.
Mm-hmm.
They went under because they couldn't pay their troops. The Soviet Union, they went under. They couldn't keep up with the arms race. And we toppled the wall. And right now, when we spend like this, we endanger everything. Social Security, Medicare, our defense, our whole way of life.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, China now has a bigger Navy than the United States. People don't recognize that. And one of the reasons we don't rebuild our Navy is the pressure on our budget.
Well, we actually spent more in interest this year for the first time in history than we did on our national defense.
Okay, well, that's a tragedy.
Which is a tragedy. And let's take a look at China, because I'm glad you brought that up. In China, the gross domestic product in 2098 was $1.077 trillion. Today, it is hovering just under 20 trillion. And we had to borrow money from China. In fact, we had to borrow so much money that we are paying them $74 million a day in interest on that money. Now, when we borrow money from China, did you ever think it would come to that?
No, and we're giving them resources every day, enormous amount of money.
And we actually helped build their economy. When we went into China, we had a situation where they coerced us to have a Chinese citizen own 51% of the company. So we gave them all of our technology, we invested the money, and then they stole that technology. And when we take a look at China, they're not to be trusted. People comment about Russia. I'm not worried about Russia. They're sitting there with an economy just slightly over $1 trillion. I'm worried about China, because if they grow at the rate of 6% a year, which is what the person in the head of the World Bank claimed it's going to happen, they'll be ahead of us in what, 10, 12 years? And if we are in a position like this where we actually go into recession, think how bad that is. So you got to understand that I'm a guy that literally started with nothing. In fact, when I went to school,
It's a wonderful story. I've read.
Worked
It's
in
a
the
wonderful
steel
story.
mill.
It's an American
It is American dream, right?
I mean, I know it's a cliche, but it's the truth. It can only happen in America.
It is. In grad school, I was getting eviction notices. I couldn't pay my rent. I had my electricity
But now you can
shut
laugh
off.
about it, see?
I could laugh about it, right? And I got a job in the auto industry in 1980. And
All right. Wouldn't it, for me to explain to our audience, you're an efficiency expert.
I've spent my
World
entire
class. I mean, you're one of the world's best known, most successful efficiency experts who teaches companies at a very, very high level how to be more productive, how to be more efficient, how to be more effective,
and how to have quality.
Yeah, and how to have quality, right? Quality control, efficiency, getting things done in the right way.
And it you always have to look at a model. So what happened in the auto industry back then, they used to have teams of people at the end of the line, and when the product wasn't any good, they would either rework it or throw it out. Well, I knew that was not going to work. Think about it. First of all, you're investing all of that labor in the beginning, but more importantly, you're never going to get any better. But I thought I knew how to solve the problem. And that's when I left Borg Warner and I started my first company. And what we did was to use statistical methods in the front of the operation. I thought the reason we had the problem was that we had too much variation. And I started ironing out the variation. And I taught the people on the line a control chart. So they actually plotted the points. We didn't have computers back then to do it. So
when was this?
Around 1980. So I started my first company
Think about
in
that. No
1983.
computers back in 1980, right?
I mean, there were no
Yeah,
computers
yeah.
on the line to continually
Yeah,
maneuver, right? So you had to have the people on the line actually plot the points. So they actually would plot the moving average, and they would use that tool to find out when the variation was significant, and they kept reducing the variation. You know what? In 4 or 5 years, we had the best quality in the world, and the overall cost of producing the product dropped exponentially. Some cases it dropped 20%, 30%, 35%.
So when the computer came along, you just took what you were doing manually, and as computers got better and better, it made you
We
much
hooked
more
the
powerful.
machine. Yes,
Yeah,
because
I had the same experience with CompStat. I developed this program for measuring crime, and the first time we did it on index cards. By the time we were finished, we used to plot it on a map through the internet. And what would take us a week to do, we could do in an hour.
in fact, you take a look. You did the same kind of thing in New York. When you came in New York, remember how you made sure that you were going to have legal votes.
Right.
So you said that if any illegals were on there, you were going to stay on top of them.
Right.
And then what happened when you used your program and you used certain techniques? The crime dropped dramatically.
Yeah, a lot of it was driven by a program to measure statistics and see where the crime took place and put the police in the right place at the right time. And then the computer made us that much more effective and efficient. And it became very, very successful.
Actually, the techniques you and I use and employ,
similar.
we use in everything.
So tell me how you would, so something about your doing that, right, brought you to the decision that you could do this job for this country right now, right? Isn't that, I mean, what you've done in the past is what brought you to this decision.
Right. I'm at a point in my life. I have the most wonderful life in the world. I have the most wonderful wife on the planet. I have 3 wonderful kids. In fact, my oldest started college.
I am.
Yeah, he's here right now. as a
How
matter
are
of
you?
fact. And you
You
know,
have 3 children?
I have 3. I have 2 who are 14, and they are going to high school. And Perry started college. Actually, he started at Michigan State this year. And to
Good
show
for
you
you.
something about my son started this year, and he is expecting to graduate next May.
Wow, Mayor.
Perry, you better go home and study.
And he's very handsome, too.
I can.
And let me tell you, my son, during COVID, when COVID hit,
Yeah.
what did my son do? He started at an internet, he started e-commerce business. And then later on, he came to me and said, Dad, I think we need to start a mortgage business. So he started a
Did you
mortgage
take after
business.
dad or?
Well, at the age
Well,
of
maybe
7.
mom is like this too. I don't know.
Well, my wife had a salon, and she had a hair salon for, I don't know, 20 years? So yes, and we're entrepreneurs. Well, what I believe is that America has always come to the rescue. we've had somebody coming to the rescue all the time.
No, that's true. And it seems, the people who are somewhat spiritual will say, well, God makes sure at the very, very last minute, just when it seems like we're falling off the cliff, the right person comes along.
They intervene.
Yeah.
That's how I feel.
Yeah, I
And
do too. I mean, it's hard to
I really
prove,
do
but-
believe it. And think about how we are inventors and we are out there constantly trying to invent things. It doesn't even matter whether you go back 120, 130 years. What you can talk about Rockefeller, Carnegie, Edison, Henry Ford. We have had a history, even in the internet.
Uh-huh.
We lead. Now we take chances, but when we feel that there's something there, we go out there. And I'm at a point in my life, yeah, I have more money than I ever dreamed of. I admit that. I'm not ashamed of the fact.
Please don't be.
No. But
By being proud of it, you encourage other people to do the
Yes.
same thing, which is what they should do.
and I want to keep the American dream alive.
God bless you.
And that is why I'm running. I think that in order for us to do this, we have to recognize what's really going on. And some of the stuff is nuts.
No
Now,
kidding.
now, for example, we know that Trump is running, and Trump is way in the lead. He's has what 54%, and everybody and their brother knows that I love Trump. I think he's probably the greatest president maybe in my lifetime. But he still spent too much money.
I mean, he spent too much money when he was in office.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he spent too much money. And then we have this unbelievable situation where Biden is trying to see if he can spend even more. And what amazes me
He is.
is I know we have spent this record sum of money. I think about it. We spent more money than ever. We claimed it was because of COVID. Then we don't have COVID anymore. Biden wants to spend even more. And now we submit this bill, which has us spending even more money. But my plan, 2 cents to save America,
Yeah, you wrote a book about it too.
I did. And keep in mind, I am the only candidate that has a plan to solve the problem. You can complain about anything.
They're cheering for you.
They're cheering for you out here. You just hit a home run. Your plan. You're too. Well, tell us how the plan. The plan is quite an. Explain how the plan works.
Okay. There's a 10-cent plan, but let me give you the actual crux of the plan. It starts very simply by changing the way in which we do things. Right now, you realize that the government spends every single penny in their budget every year.
Right.
Okay. In fact, they go out of their way to make sure that they spend it so they can get more money the next year. And the more money they have, the more powerful they become. I say we do just the opposite. What we're going to do is freeze the budget on all discretionary spending. And they have to cut 2 cents out of every dollar in discretionary spending. They have to cut that every year. In fact, if they do, they get a bonus. If they don't, they don't. Some departments we just get rid of, like the Department of Education. Think of the Department of Education. At least you're clapping. Some people are ready to kill me. But I say, we have 4,400 people spending $68 billion, and yet only about 8% of that money goes to kids grades K through 12.
100%.
Let's get rid of it all. And I say we go down from 4,400 people to 2 and have those 2 people send the money directly to the parents, and they take this 8% and they send their kids wherever they want.
Well, Perry, I have probably the best example in the world of that in New York City. New York City now spends $37,000 per student on students, and we have almost 800,000 less students than we had 6 years ago, and we spend more money on fewer students. Now, the charter schools that have been established without union intervention spend only $18,000 per student. The graduation rates are 8 times higher. The performance rates are unbelievably different. And it's the same students. They're all minority students from the same neighborhoods. In Harlem, for example, more children go to charter schools than public schools. The children in the charter schools graduate at a rate 60, 70% more than the public schools. And do you know what the response of the New York State communists in the Democratic Party is? They're passing a law that if more than 50% of your students are in a charter school, you can have no more charter schools
Oh, geez.
in any other place. So the other districts, of which there are 31
They got
other
to get
districts,
together with Michigan.
the other 31 districts who look at Harlem, where this worked for black people and minorities, they want the charter schools,
Yes.
but they can't have them. Because I don't know, because the kids will get educated. They're afraid. I guess they're afraid if the kids get educated, They can't completely keep them dependent and under control.
It's a sin.
I can say that's a very good word. That's exactly what it is. I think you go to hell for doing that.
It's a sin. And one of the most important foundations of any society is the education system. And if our education system goes awry, we have a huge problem down the line. And I want everyone to understand how absurd things have gotten. Do you know that there is nothing in this country where the price or inflation has affected people more than the cost of tuition? I'm going to give you an example. Michigan State University, the cost of tuition in 1979 was $25 a credit hour. If it had gone up at the rate of inflation, it would be $100 a credit hour.
Right.
But it's $505 a credit hour. Now, they passed a law in 1965, and in that law, they said that the government would suddenly guarantee all student loans, regardless. Understand, you have a 17-year-old that can borrow anything, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000. They have no idea what it's like to have to pay back this loan. They've had no experience in having to control money. And here they are making these ridiculous loans where the people are punished because we've given all this money to the colleges freely, year after year after year, and the costs have escalated to the point of absurdity. I read about that in my book. In fact, one of the examples I use, because we're near Massachusetts, is Harvard. Harvard tuition in 1966, when they passed the law, was $1,700 a year for room and board and tuition. Right now, it's $81,000.
Did you say 1,700 a year?
1,700 a year. It's $81,000. Now, if Perry has kids and they want to go to Harvard, and let's say he decides to get married at 28 and he has kids, the cost to go to Harvard for 4 years, which I write about in the book, will be $1.8 million if prices continue to escalate at the same rate. It is absurd, and we have to do something about that. Think about it. You go to school and you get a degree in philosophy. How much you're going to make? I mean, you say, okay, I've got this degree in philosophy. I'm going to sit around and I'm going to philosophize.
I thought about that once because I had a minor in philosophy. I thought maybe I could put out a shingle, philosopher at large, and people could come in and debate Plato with me or something.
Yeah, well, they used to with Aristotle.
I think I'd be on food stamps now, but maybe I'd be better off on food stamps. Who knows? No, and it really is terrible. It's wonderful to see that you're running a campaign in which you're putting issues out and educating. Now, how do you find it in New Hampshire? I mean, it really is an amazing experience.
It's probably the best state in the entire country for my message. Do you know in New Hampshire?
People really question you about it, right? Are they really?
Yeah, they do. And politics in New Hampshire is a sport. Yeah, everybody's involved in politics.
Exactly the same.
Did you ever notice that?
I often said they all have PhDs in politics. They just don't understand it.
And think of what they give up, though. Think of the people of New Hampshire and how important their state and their country is to them. You have 400 people in your House of Representatives. They get paid $100 a year. You have a similar situation in the Senate, $100 a year for a senator, and they may have to work 4 days a week. And you have people essentially donating their time so that New Hampshire can be the best possible state in the union. New Hampshire has no taxes, right? They have no sales tax. They have no income tax.
Yeah,
I don't know another state like that.
Yeah.
New Hampshire, live free or die.
It's the only state within someone said today on something I was listening to that New Hampshire is the only state within 1,000 miles that has no income tax because it's basically the Northeast, the left.
Yeah.
Northeast.
I know, well, yeah.
At least down south, you've got Texas and Florida. What?
Oh, we have 5 more minutes with our.
Well, Ted, who's a political expert, and Dr. Maria, who actually does have a PhD, but she also has the other PhD from being a lifetime New Hampshire resident. Do you have a question, Ted, or Miss New Hampshire? Do you have a question?
We're getting a lot of comments, of course. I know Perry Johnson, being from Michigan. He's well known in the Great Lakes state for, of course, his success in business. Wherever he goes, he's been on TV quite a bit in recent years. So he's definitely making a splash in Michigan and elsewhere. Of course, he also ran an ad in Iowa. You've been running ads in Iowa and New Hampshire. And so we're getting a lot of questions. People are very, they're finding your message very encouraging, Mr. Johnson. Their question is, we're getting a lot of questions here, a lot of specifics about your background and what really, and you kind of answered this already, but why now? Why are you running for president now? You said some very nice things about President Trump. Why the sense of urgency?
Well, right now, it's a combination of two things. I'm at a point in my life where I can run for president. I spent a lot of time with my kids. I was not going to go and do anything until my 14-year-olds got into high school because I spend a tremendous amount. In fact, I'm close with my children. I would caddy for them on the golf course. They play golf. Yeah. In fact, by the way, I don't know whether anybody realizes what it's like to run for president, but it is probably, you did, I know. In fact, that's why I have a reality series. And I started the reality series on Newsmax. And you can look online, but on Newsmax, we have a regular show. It's typically at 9:00. This Sunday, it'll be at 7:30. But we actually show what it's like.
I know.
And believe me, there's nothing like it, is it? Nothing.
I think it's very realistic. Having done it over 10 years ago, it's very realistic. We're in this hotel because when I was running, I stayed in this hotel. I woke up in the morning exhausted to go out and go on a line and shake hands. And I saw a baseball field in the back, and I decided I'm always going to stay here because the baseball field makes me feel good. It is nice, isn't it? Yeah, it makes me feel good seeing the baseball field. So, Dr. Maria, the New Hampshire resident.
Mr. Johnson, 2 questions.
Sure.
One is, how are you going to handle negotiating with Congress in the Senate, especially the radical left, who don't seem to love America? And then the second question is, how do people learn more about you? Can you say your website?
Sure. My website is perryjohnson.com. Easy to remember.
perryjohnson.com.
Now, the key to any of this is that you have to have support. And I think one of the things that starts with is your cabinet you get to choose. So if somebody doesn't support my 2-cent plan, I'm not going to have him on the cabinet. I don't care if the most brilliant guy in the world. I don't care if the guy has shown that he has the ability to run the 3rd, 4th biggest company in the world. If he doesn't support my plan, I can't have him on the cabinet. Second, when you go and you endorse people or you start helping them in the campaigns, running for Senate or running for the House, you have to have people that are on your same wavelength. If they don't support your plan, you're dead. You have to have a cadre of people behind you. That in my business, I have 88 companies now, 87 companies. We operate in 61 countries. Do you know none of my companies have any debt? I have no personal debt. I'm a guy that is truly Yankee frugal. So when we talk about this, you have to have a certain strategy for anything, even in the companies. When you actually run companies, the way to get them to really run effectively is to have great management. The average tenure of my management is about 18 or 19 years.
That's wonderful.
And I don't turn people over. I have people that are great managers, and they have to love what they do. They have to be part and parcel of your same line of thinking. Because the way I believe it, I believe the most important thing in the world is for you to feel like you're making the world a better place. So it starts with the idea that you have to care for the people. And if the people know that you care for them, you automatically have generated a certain warmth and an inner warmth. The fact that you are going to hire people that are like you, that have the same drive, that like the idea of working, that is key. See, when COVID hit and I was shut down for 2 weeks, I went nuts. But I thought my wife was going to kill me.
I bet you did. Your personality, I can see that. I can see that.
Because one of the greatest joys in life
and you're
is working.
You're in a terrible state, too.
I'm in one of the worst states in the union.
The governor was like, you will close down your business now or you will be put on a train.
Do you know what she did? She did the same thing that Kono did. She forced the people that had COVID to go back into the nursing homes whereby they infected all the people.
Yeah, I mean, it's unbelievable.
And our businesses in Michigan were among the top businesses in the country for the duration that they were closed. She set records for the number of businesses that were killed as a result of what she did. And the amazing thing is she got reelected.
And then she got reelected by 9 points.
I didn't get it.
Yeah, I didn't get
Well,
it
by
either.
10 and a half, actually.
I
You know
didn't
why
get
she
it.
got
yet.
reelected?
No.
Because
Okay.
you and Chief Craig weren't on the ballot.
Because they kicked me off the ballot.
I know
Oh,
this.
they kicked you off.
They kicked me off the ballot. And they said that the signatures
They
didn't look
infiltrated
good.
your signature process, didn't they? I think,
Yes,
if I
in
recall
fact-
correctly.
That's what they do to everybody. They
Well,
do it
wait,
to
yeah.
everybody.
I said,
They
my
did it to
comment,
my son also, who
I said,
ran in New
look,
York.
the signature I have now doesn't reflect the signature I had when I registered to vote. You couldn't even tell. I mean, I'll sign the book for you. It doesn't even look the same, right? I said, show us the signatures. Actually, my attorney said, show us the signatures that you said were bad. Well, we don't know what signatures we looked at. That's a matter of record. In court, the Supreme Court wouldn't hear it. When I took it to they told us that on Friday at 7:30, and then on Monday we filed in federal court. They sit on it for a week, and their excuse is at the end there isn't enough paper to reprint the ballots.
So they took out
The top two, Chief Craig and myself.
several candidates.
Five.
Right? Yeah. The ones that they were worried about the
Two top
most.
Well,
candidates
the two
were
top-
Perry
the
Johnson
most
and
important thing.
James Craig. Oh, yeah.
I'm not making this
Oh, I
up.
remember
Oh,
that.
yeah. We're
No, I
recording,
remember
yeah.
that. And of course, I have an awful lot of experience with your state.
It's unbelievable. That is why
I
she
know,
ended
I
up
know,
winning.
I know the bad parts of your state really well, unfortunately, because of the election of 2020. And also, I don't have a very high regard for a lot of the Republicans in your state, who I'm not sure are Republicans.
Well, I'm a Republican.
No, I don't know about you. There are a lot of great ones, like Ted. There are a lot of great Republicans,
That's right.
and you know the ones that I support. But there were an awful lot of double crosses in
Yeah, I
Michigan
know, that
also.
is the problem.
Wow, I would say.
You have a huge problem there. Yeah.
I mean, I dealt very closely with 5 states, negotiated with them very, very hard. I would say Michigan was the worst in terms of Republicans who do business with the Democrats and take whatever little crumbs the Democrats will give them.
But Snyder was a governor for 8 years, did a good job. We had
Mhm.
a real good success. Engler was a
Engler was a great
right?
governor.
Great governor, right?
Yeah, oh yeah, you've had
He's actually the one that talked me into running for governor.
no, you've had some great governors, but
Yeah.
recently, the last 7 or 8 years, the party has become sort of subservient, like has a subservient feeling. Doesn't mean you don't have great people, but it needs revival. Maybe you can do that for them.
It does. Well,
Yeah.
I
But you
intend to
certainly
win
have
Michigan.
You certainly have that. The
Michigan
attitude.
will be number 5. And the race, the presidential race, as you all know, at this stage, it doesn't mean a whole lot.
Oh, I know that. You sure?
In fact, I don't think Trump even had announced at this point. He wasn't even running. But you have to be able to do well in the beginning states. If you do not do well in Iowa or New Hampshire, you're out. You're essentially done for. So you have to at least do pretty well in Iowa. If the expectations are that you are going to win and you end up finishing 3rd, it's a disaster.
Yeah, expectations and results have a lot to do with the early primaries. Like, for example, you need to do better than they think you're going to do.
Right.
I know you don't want to hear. You don't have to win.
No.
You got to do better than they think you're going to do. The minute that happens, then you put yourself in a position to be able to win.
Right.
And I'm sure I'm not telling you something you don't know. But
The way it always works, you better finish. If you better not do dramatically worse than they expect, and you better finish in the top 5 in Iowa and 5 in New Hampshire, or maybe 4 or 5 in New Hampshire.
right, depending on who you are.
Right.
I
And
mean,
then-
like if you were DeSantis and you finished 3rd,
oh,
Not
that
good.
you're out.
What are your thoughts on the DeSantis campaign? and that
Whereas if you finish 3rd, you'd be on your way.
they said, yes, if I finish 3rd,
You'd be on your way.
I'd be on my way.
Yeah, I mean, so that's the difference in it isn't so much the position,
Right.
it's where you're coming from.
Right. So you don't. If a guy is on the outside, and let's face it, I am the outsider of outsiders. So when you have something like that, and you end up finishing 3rd, which I think I can do. I certainly expect to finish 3rd or 4th in Iowa, and I think I can finish 3rd or 4th in New Hampshire.
That would make a big difference.
If I do that, I'm on my way.
It would change the race.
When did you get in the CPAC straw poll?
We finished 3rd.
You finished 3rd.
Now, I remember that. That's why I picked.
That
That's
raised a
why I
lot
picked
of,
3rd.
that got you a lot of attention, and people started reading about Perry Johnson and his incredibly.
Well, they liked
detailed
my
plan.
speech.
Yes, sir. All
Well,
right,
I
what a
think
great-
Perry, it's going to be a question of your time. I mean, if you have the kind of personality that the more contact you can make, the better you're going to do.
I know.
And and still there's a limit on the amount of time. The choices that you make about where you go are going to have a lot to do with what you win. And
Well, I am spending most of the time in Iowa and New Hampshire
well, you got to at the
because
beginning.
that's the key, right? And you have to do that. And I love retail politics.
I can see
You
that.
can see that, right? I mean, I
can
love
see
it.
that. I can tell the moment I saw you on television. I can tell that.
When can folks catch the the ongoing docu series? Is that 9 o'clock?
It's this Sunday. It's at 7:30.
Okay.
But the rest of the weeks it'll always be at 9 o'clock Sunday
On Newsmax.
on Newsmax.
On Newsmax.
Yeah, and they can always go online and see the series afterwards.
Perry, they go to what?
PerryJohnson.com.
PerryJohnson.com. And there
Slash-
they can get,
Well, if they go /backstage, they go directly to that.
so they can get
That's exciting.
they can get it as a podcast too.
That's right.
Yes.
And it's
And they can
behind the
watch it.
scenes.
And it's really behind the scenes. Now, some of the stuff I probably shouldn't have shown.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, well, now they'll definitely watch it.
That's
That's
No,
intriguing, Perry.
seriously. Because we have, as you will find out, I never use a teleprompter. There is nothing memorized. I am what I am, and I've spent my entire life essentially giving seminars. I started giving seminars
I
in the
saw that.
beginning, never used a note. I don't need them. And they're going to see me speaking from the heart every time. And unfortunately, some of the things I say, I probably shouldn't say, but that's life.
Well, you've got to go reach some voters. Your staff needs you out there. Every moment in New Hampshire is, and we probably got to, by the time we finish with the podcast, we'll get to about 400,000 or 500,000 people tonight. So
It's fantastic.
you haven't wasted your
And
time.
thanks. Oh,
right.
I'm delighted. It's
Very
delightful.
good luck. I'm very,
Thank
very
you.
impressed. Very impressed. And we'll be in touch again for sure.
Great. Thanks. Sounds great.
Faith and family, freedom and finance are four things that we would do anything to protect. I trust the team at Kirk Elliott, PhD, Private Advisors, with providing the advice and sound strategies to take advantage of the inflationary pressures, the high interest rates, and the international challenges we face today. The Kirk Elliott team, with over 29 years of experience, shares our values and believes in people over profit. They can help you protect your finances from the big government policies that are out of our control. So what's in our control? The decision to act or not to act is within our control. I encourage you to act. Call Kirk Elliott, PhD, Private Advisors today. Start working with a team that will help you protect your retirement assets with gold and silver while sharing your desire to protect your faith, family, and freedom. Call them today, 720-605-3900. That's 720-605-3900, and tell them Rudy sent you. Or simply fill out a request for a free consultation at kirkelliottphd.com/Rudy.
And Parker gets to be on the show. This is Parker.
Parker, there you are.
Got it. All right.
Good luck, Parker. Good luck, dear.
Good seeing you.
Good to see you. Good to see you. Just watch the wires.
Yeah, be careful.
Okay, and then we're gonna have.
Well, wasn't that an impressive one? I'll tell you, that was an impressive candidate with a very, very upbeat, happy message, which I think is so important. The happy warrior, which I guess goes back to Roosevelt as a description. The happy warrior is always the candidate. I'm just looking for here we go. The happy warrior is always the best type of candidate. As soon as we're finished with the ad, we'll put Kirk on and get an update that we always look forward to on the economy and some wise advice on how to protect ourselves as our economy seems to, it doesn't just muddle along, it seems to deteriorate every week.
Kirk, can you hear the mayor?
I can.
Kirk, I can hear you perfect, Kirk.
Awesome.
So where do you think we are right now, Kirk, in terms of our economy and and what kind of wise words would you give people about what they should be thinking about?
Well, you look at what happened over the last couple of days with the debt ceiling. I mean, it explains a lot. We're not in a good spot. Because if you go back weeks, you know, you've got McCarthy and Biden, and they're pretending to be arguing about raising the debt. so you've got Biden that says we're never going to negotiate, and McCarthy says no, you can't raise the debt ceiling. So then Biden basically kind of shows his true colors and goes to Japan for a little bit for the G7 meetings, because he's more concerned about G7 and global policy than domestic policy and what's happening to Americans here. So then they come back and they get talking again. And what do? They raise the debt ceiling, just like you and I talked about how they would. So, but they didn't just do it a little, Mayor. They did it a lot. They raised it $4 trillion. It passed the House yesterday. The Senate's going to vote on it within the next few hours, probably. And so, I mean, no doubt in my mind, it's going to pass, you know, with flying colors. But here's the issue with it. So we started a nation. We were just a baby in 1776, right? So we had zero debt because we didn't have time to spend like drunken sailors. So we went from zero debt to $31 trillion worth of debt 250 years later. Okay, so realize it took us 250 years to accumulate $31 trillion worth of debt. In one morning, they just raised the debt ceiling by $4 trillion. See, it's out of control. So the ramifications of that are coming at the worst possible time. When you've got the BRICS nations that are rising up, they're removing the petrodollar standard. So now we don't have any demand for our currency when we just added more debt than what we've ever had. And ADP's report came out this morning that said wages are still coming down, and you've got unemployment that's higher than it's been in the last 18 months. I said, this is ridiculous, right? So horrible economy, wages coming down, inflation persisting, and in the world of politics, only in DC does it make sense to add debt to get rid of debt. Right?
Of course, absolutely.
So this is the problem. This is the problem, and I don't see this as getting much better. And I was watching a video, Mayor, 2 mornings ago, because I'm thinking, why does President Biden keep making all these bad decisions, right? Well, who is whispering in his ear, right? So we have to start, who are his advisors? Who is he talking to? So I was looking at February 14th. Jared Bernstein became nominated for head of the Council of Economic Advisors, right? So these 3 people are the ones that whisper the most or speak loudly and shout into the president's ear about economic policy. Well, who's Jared Bernstein? Jared Bernstein was in the Clinton Labor Department. He was known of being a huge major proponent of worker power. Okay, when you hear the words worker power, that should scream communist, right?
100%.
So
Absolutely.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. But then it goes one step further. In 2014, Bernstein wrote an article basically saying we need to dethrone the king dollar. Okay. So he's whispering into the president's ear now as head of the Council of Economic Advisors. And he's written an article about he doesn't want the dollar to be the world's reserve currency, right? So no wonder, as you're looking at what's happening, the backdrop of everything we're seeing today, the BRICS nations rising up, saying we're removing the petrodollar standard. The dollar isn't going to be the world's reserve currency, and they're getting zero opposition from the current White House because the people whispering into the president's ear that he believes in their ideology are saying, well, we want the dollar to die. We don't want it to be the world's reserve currency. Imagine how different a story it would be if the BRICS nations were rising up, taking away the petrodollar status, trying to remove the US dollar as the world's reserve currency, if you had Reagan or Trump in office, they would say, no way,
Right.
not under my watch. This is never going to happen. But under a globalist agenda policy that we're seeing now, the erosion of America, the fabric of everything that we know and hold near and dear to our heart, including our finances, our checkbooks, our retirement plans, are eroding because of these horrible policies.
How much of that can I protect myself against, or the theoretical, whatever a person we talk about, how much can they protect themselves against if they move into silver, gold, if they diversified to some extent? How much protection do they get from that?
So you get as much protection as you want to diversify, right? So you diversify a little, you get little protection. You diversify a lot, you get a lot of protection. See, because they're counter opposing forces.
Yes.
You've got
explain that so people understand. Explain that so people understand that. Why is that so?
Paper assets. The bond market comes down when interest rates rise. When interest rates rise and people are shackled with debt and they're living hand to mouth at the margin right now, rising interest rates, rising prices, rising taxes will cause them to spend less. That causes stocks, bonds to come down, and real estate to come down. Well, those exact forces of unsustainable debt, political chaos, geopolitical conflict, inflating prices, that all causes gold and silver to go up. So here's where your protection against the forces that are prevailing against us, these major headwinds against our economy, causing stocks, bonds, mutual funds to come down. You have to realize, Mayor, those exact same forces cause gold and silver to go up. So you're protected by as much as you diversify, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. Sure, absolutely. So you basically, as long as things remain moving in that direction, you're moving in the opposite direction, so you're protected.
Correct. I mean, it's not that I'm against the stock market or bond market or anything. I mean, I actually love them when the time is right. But for that to grow again, for those particular markets to grow again, we need a president like Trump or Trump himself, right, that lowers taxes, lowers interest rates, and starts creating jobs. Until then, you're pushing against major headwinds that it's going to be very difficult to get a profit in your portfolio. But it's going to be very easy to get it in gold and silver. Look at what silver has done. It was 11, because I want people to understand, and I don't want them to take my word for it, right? So back in March of 2020, silver was $11.91 an ounce. Today, it's about 24. Well, that's doubled in 3 years. It's doubled. So that's on average going over 30% a year. That's amazing. Who would be crying crocodile tears over that kind of a return? When I hear people that are saying, oh, my stock market portfolio is going down, my bonds are getting sunk, my real estate's coming down, it's like, okay, reallocate, diversify into safety, because silver has not been doing bad. In fact, it's been doing amazing. The number one asset class in the world over the last few years, and that trend is going to continue because the forces that caused its growth are still there. They're getting worse, and that means silver still has a lot of upward movement in it, and that's how you protect and preserve your portfolio against these stupid government policies that neither one of us can control.
Now, if and when the situation changes, do you and your people have the flexibility to recommend changing back in the other direction?
Well, yeah, we want to lock in profits.
I know that. I just wanted to make sure people understood that.
Yeah. So when gold or silver are done, we'll lock in our profits. At that time, maybe people go back into stocks.
Right.
Maybe they go back into bonds, if interest rates are sky high like they were in 1983 when interest rates were 18% on a 30-year mortgage. Well, that would be the time you want to lock into a bond for 30 years, right? When interest rates are that high. Or maybe we get out of silver and we go into gold. If we have a gold-backed dollar by that point, maybe you want to stay in gold because it'll be growth moving forward if it's backing a currency. The thing is, Mayor, we don't know what the exit strategy is until it's right in front of us.
Of course not. It would be silly
there always is one.
Of course there is. It'd be silly to have one until the facts present themselves that suggest what the right strategy is. I just wanted people to know that you're not a one horse pony.
No, Yeah, and it might sound like I am because I talk about silver.
Well,
every
that's
week,
what you should be
but
talking
that's
about right now.
because it's the only thing that's doing well right now to protect and preserve, to grow a portfolio, to thrive. Because our goal as investors is to minimize risk and maximize return. Different times in history, different things fit that category of minimizing risk and maximizing return. Right now, it just happens to be silver.
Now, if people want to have a conversation about how to do this, which is geared to their own personal situation, which really is different for everyone, just tell them how to do it.
So you can do one of two things. You can go online and fill out a little web form, that asks you questions that, hey, I want a free consultation. Just go to kirkelliottphd.com/Rudy. Or that's a website that we put up just for your show here. Or you can just call us simply 720-605-3900.
And those are on the screen.
720-605-3900, and just say Rudy sent you.
And then they can have a personal, confidential conversation and figure out something that applies directly to them.
Yeah, we're going to listen to their dreams, their fears, their aspirations, their goals, income needs, growth needs, right? And this is why we don't have a cookie cutter approach. Everybody's significantly
I think
different.
that's great.
So we'll go over that in the free consultation. They will set you up with our advisors or myself, and we'll go over these things and map out a strategy for success moving forward that will get you out of the path of this hurricane.
Well, thank you, Kirk, and you have a great weekend, and we'll be looking forward to talking to you next week. But make sure you make that call. I think it's necessary for you to have an evaluation. I don't know, Kirk, if it's sort of like getting a physical and seeing how things are, and then getting a recommendation for your doctor on how to put yourself in the best possible position. So I'd follow through. kirkelliottphd.com/Rudy. And you can organize a telephone call with Kirk or one of his very, very expert people, and they can apply the principles that Kirk has been talking about and I've been talking about. They can apply them to you, because that's the only way to really do it. There's a general part to this, which applies to everyone. And then there's a particular part that applies to you, and that can only be done. I mean, that can't be done, on a basis where it's the same for everyone. So make the phone call. It'll really help you. And thank you, Kirk, very, very much for all the help you're giving people. We really appreciate it. This is exactly what America needs right now. So I think we've had quite a good show tonight. I'm always impressed with Kirk, because he's giving people practical help and advice, which, not everyone, I guess, is going to take it. They never do, but you got nothing to lose calling him and just thinking it out for yourself and then deciding what you want to do. But just get some free advice that's worth it from people who are experts and have nothing in mind, but you're making money and they're making money. That's the nice thing about something like that. They don't make any money unless you make money. So, they're concentrating exactly on the problem that exists. And it's a strange thing, but you look at the tremendous damage that's being done by Biden. But if you understand the dynamics of our extraordinarily complex economy, every disaster also presents opportunities. And that's what Kirk is talking to you about. Can I have a copy of the book as we sign off, so I show it to people? Dr. Maria, can I have your copy?
This is yours. I didn't get one.
Oh, you didn't get one? Well, I can't imagine you. Well, that's the only thing I had. Perry, I got to say, if I had a choice between giving a copy to me or to Dr. Maria, I'd give one to Dr. Maria. There's Perry's. I see Arthur Laffer did the forward to it. Arthur Laffer, of course, was the economist that came up with a lot of the Reagan, I think would be credited with a lot of the elements of Reaganomics, including the Laffer curve, which, if I recall correctly, because I used it myself in lowering taxes in New York shows you the impact that lowering taxes can have on the economy, and also can be, and I created my own variation of it where I showed that if you cut taxes intelligently, you can actually make more money for the government from the lower taxes than you can from the higher taxes. Or by cutting one tax, you can pick it up in multiples in another tax. For example, if you were to cut the income tax or get rid of it like you do in New Hampshire, so many more people move in that you pick it up in the property tax. So there's an art to taxation that is an art and a science to Republicans, and to Democrats, it's really just an application of Marx, redistribution of wealth. They have no idea of the enormously dynamic things you can do to an economy to bring people out of poverty and actually give them an opportunity for wealth with very, very dynamic tax programs. Democrats, with regard to taxes, are like Neanderthals who all they have is the big club, and that's it. And they smash you into subjugation and into dependency. Republicans are like brain surgeons where it comes to the economy. So different. Well, it is very invigorating to be here in New Hampshire. We had a good day today, talking to people and picking up what's going on in the various primaries. I guess the game is over now, right? The game is.
Let's take a look at. Let's close out with some of the game.
Well, no.
That microphone.
Well, no, wait now. It is not over because I see the Fisher Cats going into their dugout, and
Something happened.
I think it's over because
Are
so the
cheering?
Fisher.
Can
So
you move to your.
no. The other
Can you
team
back up a little bit, Mayor?
back up.
Yeah, back up in your chair to get out of the shot so we can show the. Let's show this view to the audience.
Here.
Back
The
up a
other
little.
team is coming out now on the field. Am I backed up enough?
Yeah. I'm gonna move this over.
The other team now is coming out on the field. The Phils are coming out on the field. I don't see the scoreboard, unfortunately. It's right. Center field is over here, and they only have one scoreboard. I mean, I'm used to lots of scoreboards at Yankee Stadium.
The game is not over.
No,
the game is not yet over. It appears that it's still.
Can you check online maybe and see if there's a online something for the Fisher Cats and we can tell them what's going on here?
They're warming up a pitcher here.
Yeah, some new pitcher. Yes.
Right now, who we have on here that's
Who?
calling. See who.
Oh, okay. All right.
So of course, Mayor, this is happening right behind us here.
So I don't know how much of it you can see, but we'll watch the rest of the game and let you know tomorrow what happened. And we thank you very, very much for tuning in tonight and watching us. And God bless you and God bless America. We'll see you tomorrow night. God bless. Our purpose to bring to bear the principle of common sense and rational discussion to the issues of our day. America was created at a time of great turmoil, tremendous disagreements, anger, hatred. There was a book written in 1776 that guided much of the discipline of thinking that brought to us the discovery of our freedoms, of our God-given freedoms. It was Thomas Paine's Common Sense, written in 1776. One of the first American bestsellers, in which Thomas Paine explained, by rational principles, the reason why these small colonies felt the necessity to separate from the Kingdom of Great Britain and the King of England. He explained their inherent desire for liberty for freedom, freedom of religion, freedom of speech, the ability to select the people who govern them. And he explained it in ways that were understandable to all the people, not just the elite. Because the desire for freedom is universal. The desire for freedom adheres in the human mind, and it is part of the human soul. This is exactly the time we should consult our history. Look at what we've done in the past and see if we can't use it to help us now. We understand that our founders created the greatest country in the history of the world, the greatest democracy, the freest country, a country that has taken more people out of poverty than any country ever. All of us are so fortunate to be Americans. But a great deal of the reason for America's constant ability to self-improve is because we're able to